From creative differences to vengeful assaults, these actors and crew learn to be careful who they anger on set the hard way. It might not have been the most highbrow entertainment to grace television screens, but there's no denying the impact Beverly Hills 90210 had while it was on the air. The glossy depiction of teen life may be comically outdated by today's standards, but the popular series delivered 10 seasons of drama that certainly didn't end after the cameras stopped rolling. Among the cast of relative unknowns that were propelled to superstardom by the show's meteoric rise to success, standouts Jennie Garth and Shannen Doherty are the two who clashed most behind the scenes. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly ahead of the 2008 reboot 90210, they opened up regarding the bitter rivalry between them that wound up getting physical. Though the pair claim they never got into an all-out brawl, they don't deny scratching each other in a fight on at least one occasion, and even admitting that the other cast members sometimes had to step in to calm them down. It seems the wounds are still present in their memory, as Garth confirmed her spats with Doherty became physical in a more recent appearance on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen.
What kinds of things did you tussle?
I can only remember one incident, and that was when, we took it outside.
Over its long history on the air, Saturday Night Live has been the stomping ground for some of the most prolific comedians of all time. Plenty of stars can credit their time on the series as a major stepping stone to their rise to fame, with talents like Bill Murray and Chevy Chase both starring in the show's earliest years. However, while those comedy legends share some history in common, that doesn't mean they always got along. One particular incident between the two castmates took place in 1978. Chase had returned to SNL to host the series after a year-long break, but he was met with some tension between himself and his former co-stars. He then entered into a verbal spat with Murray, with the two trading insults that poked at everything from their respective marital problems to the other's physical appearance. The fighting words quickly turned into an actual fight, and the pair duked it out in John Belushi's dressing room. For his part, Chase reports that Belushi wound up taking the brunt of the punches thrown when he tried to come between them. Thankfully, it seems that the two Saturday Night Live stars have been able to reconcile over the years since their skirmish, with Bill Murray saying in an interview with Empire magazine, "Chevy and I are friends now, it's all fine." Though the genre of medical dramas is certainly nothing new to broadcast television, few have gone the distance quite like Grey's Anatomy. First airing in spring 2005, the series has seen countless actors come and go across its over 400-episode run, all portraying characters whose lives are directly related to the goings-on at a Seattle hospital. Despite the lengthy history the show has, this particular bit of drama took place not long after the series debuted. Unfortunately, not all fights are over petty matters or trivial disagreements. In the case of Isaiah Washington and Patrick Dempsey's on-set fight, the two actors got into a particularly nasty scuffle. As recalled by several cast and crew in the book How to Save a Life, the inside story of Grey's Anatomy, the confrontation got to a point where Washington had Dempsey pinned against a wall before uttering a homophobic slur directed at a third cast member, T.R. Knight. Unsurprisingly, the fallout from the event led to Washington's prompt dismissal from the series and proved damaging to the actor's career, at least temporarily. Criminal Minds carved out a niche for itself in the sea of police and crime procedurals by focusing on the inner psyche of the most dangerous criminals around and the FBI agents who track them down. Among the most prominent members of the cast is Thomas Gibson, who plays Behavioral Analysis Unit Chief Aaron Hotch Hotchner. While Hotch's time in the series comes to an end when he goes into witness protection, the reality behind Gibson's departure from the cast was for far less noble reasons. According to TMZ, Gibson's tenure on Criminal Minds came to an abrupt end in August 2016 after a disagreement between him and a producer turned physical, ending with the Criminal Minds star allegedly kicking the crew member. Not long after the story broke, Gibson would speak to People magazine about the unfortunate incident, alleging that the whole thing was overblown. He explained, "The producer came into that room and started coming towards me. As he brushed past me, my foot came up and tapped him on the leg. If I hadn't moved, he would have run into me. We had some choice words, for which I apologized the next day, and that was it. It was over." Regardless of the conflicting interpretations of the event, the former star hasn't been seen on Criminal Minds since.
He could be anywhere.
Airing on ABC since 1997, The View has been host to some of the most prominent figures in both the political and social sphere. The daytime talk show was the brainchild of late reporter Barbara Walters. who used the platform to discuss some of the most pressing and popular topics of the day, alongside a panel of other women who have come and gone over the years. However, after a guest appearance on the show by former ESPN anchor Sage Steele, an awkward and violent encounter took place behind the scenes of the acclaimed talk show. While speaking on the Megyn Kelly show, Steele claims to have been backstage when she came face-to-face with Walters.
She just started to back up towards me and looked at me and got close and elbowed me.
The force of the blow pushed Steele into a nearby trash can, disorienting her and surprising several co-stars and producers who were there to witness the transgression. Luckily, a fellow host of the show, Whoopi Goldberg, witnessed the attack, pulled Steele aside, and expressed her own outrage at Walters' behavior. All in all, this altercation amounts to one of the most perplexing on-set scuffles on this list. Perhaps it was for the best that Walters left the show that same year. Decades after his heated exchange with Bill Murray escalated to fisticuffs, Chevy Chase would once again be involved in some on-set tension. It all went down during his time on the sitcom Community, which, regrettably, was marked by more than just a physical altercation with a fellow cast member. As Joel McHale revealed in an interview on The Howard Stern Show, during the time they worked together, Chase would often try to pick a fight with his co-star. This conflict ultimately came to a head when the pair were rehearsing for a scene in which their characters are training for an upcoming boxing match. Reportedly, Chase repeatedly instructed McHale to hit him harder and harder. Eventually, McHale obliged and struck Chase so hard he seriously injured his co-star's shoulder. As if that wasn't bad enough, Chase's problematic behavior on set extended past the bounds of physical action. Comedian Donald Glover, who portrayed Troy Barnes in the series' first 5 seasons, revealed to The New Yorker that Chase would often make racially charged jokes at his expense, which ultimately contributed to the veteran actor's removal from the show. Set in the fictional Genoa City, The Young and the Restless revolves around competing families from all social classes and the rivalries they end up forming. There's been a plethora of actors who have called the city home over the years, with some of its most prominent being Eric Braeden and Peter Bergman. And just like their on-screen counterparts, it turns out that Braeden and Bergman have had their share of conflict behind the scenes as well. The exact details of their fight are still a bit mysterious. But what we do know is that early into their time on the show together, animosity quickly developed between newcomer Bergman and long-standing star Braeden. This conflict wound up boiling over into a full-blown fight sometime in 1991. In a 2017 interview with Soap Opera Digest, Braeden remarked that, though the contentious dynamic between the co-stars felt important at the time, he regrets the strife that built up between him and Bergman. Even so, the two stars ultimately made the most out of the differences, with Braeden suggesting to Bergman that the two rely on their real-life conflicts to drum up good drama for the series. Braeden reflected, "He, of course, is a bright guy and agreed with me, and we have nothing but respect for each other, but it took a while to get to that point." Though he might be best known today for being a UFC commentator and the host of his own podcast, it's easy to forget that Joe Rogan was also the host of Fear Factor for a number of years. The unapologetically 2000s game show challenged contestants to endure over-the-top, grotesque, and often dangerous challenges for a hefty cash prize and some serious bragging rights to go along with it. However, as any situation involving extreme stress is likely to do, tempers flared more than once on the show's run. One altercation in particular led to a confrontation between Rogan and a contestant that was even caught on tape and aired on the show. In a Season 6 episode of the series, a contestant named Victoria was tasked with retrieving a skull at the end of an underwater alligator tunnel. While this was fairly standard procedure for the series, she ultimately failed to beat the challenge. In an attempt to gain a psychological advantage in the competition, another contestant proceeded to loudly berate her, earning a swift punch from Victoria in response. Shocked by her reaction, Rogan tried to intervene by informing her that physically attacking other contestants is not acceptable behavior for the show, before hastily making a comment about spousal abuse.
Look, if you and your husband hit each other, that's one thing. You don't run up and hit other contestants.
Unsurprisingly, Victoria's husband and teammate took offense at this comment, lunging at Rogan. The scuffle went on for a few moments before finally being intercepted by another contestant. It all happens in just a few brief moments, and would almost sound too goofy to believe if it wasn't all well documented. When it first came on the air in the late 90s, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was something truly special. The mix of serialized horror and teen drama was a far cry from other contemporary horror shows on the airwaves at the time, and helped pave the way for the wide variety of horror series available today. The show's success was all thanks to creator Joss Whedon. Over the years, Whedon has proven that he's undeniably skilled at helming a TV series, but he doesn't have a spotless record off-camera. As it turns out, Buffy and the blood-sucking undead weren't the only ones getting into fights on the set of the hit 90s drama. While speaking on the podcast Inside of You in 2021, James Marsters, who played Spike from Season 2 onward, reflected on how the character was originally intended to be killed off early into his run on the show. As a result of Spike's popularity with viewers, however, Whedon was forced to keep him on the series, conflicting with his vision of how the character and series should progress.
Network was telling him, oh my God, keep this guy in the show and all of that. And he's like, I was basically ruining his show.
Ultimately, Whedon redirected his frustration with the constraints put on him by the network toward Marsters. This tension continued to grow, eventually culminating in the director pushing the actor against a wall. Thankfully, Marsters looks back on the scuffle with humor, but this exchange was only one of several controversies that would emerge throughout Whedon's career. First appearing in a radio broadcast nearly a century ago, the character of the Green Hornet has made numerous appearances across the vast landscape of media. Wearing a green mask, the hero rides around in a tricked-out car known as the Black Beauty with his sidekick Kato in tow. Together, the duo has fought crime in everything from comic books to the silver screen. The Green Hornet's first TV series premiered in 1966, and that same year, some of the violence showcased in the action-packed show spilled over into the real world. Legendary Hollywood actor and martial artist Bruce Lee was brought in to portray Kato, and no one could have been better suited for the physically demanding role. Unfortunately, Lee seemed to know that better than anyone. According to The Things, Lee apparently started to get a little too rough with the show's stuntmen, flaunting his real martial arts prowess until he finally met his match. Gene LaBelle was a prolific stuntman and martial artist in his own right, and one day he picked Lee up and proceeded to run around the set with him over his shoulders, all while Lee shouted death threats and demanded to be put down. Instead of being quickly forgotten like a number of the fights we've looked at, the roughhousing between Lee and LaBelle took on something of a mythical status in the world of cinema. Famously, it inspired a scene in director Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where Brad Pitt's Cliff Booth squares up against a dramatized Bruce Lee. After over 40 years on the air between the original series and its revival, Top Gear has gained worldwide renown. The hit series features a trio of presenters as they talk about new and exciting cars being developed and embark on wild and wacky adventures and challenges. It's a formula that's made the series one of the best in British broadcasting. But with all that fame comes a fair bit of controversy, which caught up with then-host Jeremy Clarkson back in 2015. Top Gear also played host to one of the most well-documented fights in TV history, which became so notorious that even the BBC publicly released a report detailing the events of the altercation. It all began at the Simon Stone Hotel in North Yorkshire, which happened to be on location for an episode the crew was filming at the time. According to The Guardian, it was there that Clarkson launched an attack against Top Gear producer Oisin Tayman, allegedly over a sirloin steak. The assault reportedly lasted approximately 30 seconds and was followed by a prolonged verbal attack against Tayman. The unsuspecting producer later had to report to a nearby accident and emergency department for treatment for his injuries. The troubling incident proved to be the last straw for the BBC, who promptly terminated Clarkson's contract as a result of the beating. Since then, Clarkson has denied any wrongdoing on Tayman's part, saying, "I would like to say sorry, once again, to Oisin Tayman for the incident and its regrettable aftermath. I want to reiterate that none of this was in any way his fault." It turns out that the clash between Bill Murray and Chevy Chase wouldn't be the last time two comedians would come to blows on the set of Saturday Night Live. As comedian Wyatt Cenac recalled in an interview on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, the then 19-year-old SNL intern got entangled in a late-night game of soccer with Norm MacDonald that turned physical. As Cenac recalled, MacDonald was particularly on edge that evening as he was in the process of quitting smoking. MacDonald and fellow cast member Colin Quinn had already had a spat earlier in the game when Norm's frustration got turned towards Cenac while they were both going for the ball.
I wound up clipping him in the shin, and then he got really mad, like you do when you're trying to quit smoking.
MacDonald proceeded to grab the teenaged intern and attempted to throw him in rage. From there, Cenac pushed MacDonald off of himself, who then pushed Cenac back. The fight continued to escalate until Quinn and Colbert, who was guest writing for the series at the time, managed to pull them away from one another. Luckily, Cenac's spat with the veteran comedian did little to inhibit the young artist from forging his own successful comedy career. By now, Cardi B likely needs no introduction. The talented rapper and songwriter first made a name for herself back in 2015 while starring in the reality series Love and Hip Hop New York, which is exactly where this story begins. On a 2017 episode of the reality show, which focuses on the relationships and personal lives of hip-hop artists and professionals in New York City, a developing beef between Cardi and co-star Asia Davies turned a little violent on air. The drama unfolded in the blink of an eye as things went from calm to chaotic, with Cardi hurling her shoe across the stage and at Davies. Instantly, the scene erupted into chaos, with practically everyone in arm's reach trying to separate the two stars from their puzzling altercation that may have left audiences scratching their heads. In an exclusive interview with Hollywood Life just days after the incident, Davies' ex-boyfriend Swift shined some light on the drama. He explained, "Cardi was mad on my behalf. She knew what went down and she was mad because I wasn't saying anything to defend myself. She threw the shoe at Asia because, well, it was a buildup of a lot of things. She was mad that Asia was trying to play the victim while I was holding it down." Swift went on to explain that Cardi was also angry due to the fact that Davies refused to tell her co-star why they didn't get along. While at least some of this outburst was self-motivated, it is reassuring to see an example of an on-set battle that started with at least the partial intention of helping someone else. There may be no performer in recent memory who could match the eccentricity of Andy Kaufman. Known for his unusual and innovative style of comedy, describing Kaufman's particular brand as offbeat would be an understatement. As a testament to his legacy, everything from an REM song to a full-blown movie chronicling his life have come out in the late performer's honor. With such a vast history behind him, it's only natural that some embellishment has emerged among the facts. While this particular battle may not have happened in reality, it left its mark in entertainment history all the same. After a bout of billing himself as one of the world's greatest wrestlers but only facing women in the ring, Kaufman finally had his clock cleaned by professional wrestler Jerry Lawler. Months later, the two appeared on an episode of Late Night with David Letterman, where things once again got heated. Kaufman, still in a neck brace from his last bout with Lawler, quickly began quarreling with his former opponent before taking a slap to the face that sent him flying out of his seat, to which he responded with a profanity-riddled threat to sue his attacker. It was all raw, unfiltered, and most importantly, real drama unfolding live on national television. Just 2 years later, Kaufman would be pronounced dead at the age of just 35, but the public feud between the two would remain in the public knowledge. Years later, it was finally revealed by none other than Jerry Lawler that not only was the on-set fight staged, but the pair were actually good friends in real life. It was an incredible piece of entertainment from a comedian who still forces audiences to ask questions about what was and wasn't real.